As Muslims, we know that God created humans from clay. We see this fact told in this way in the Quran, here in Surah Al-Mu'minun. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِنْ طِينٍ. And indeed, we created humankind from an extract of clay. The Arabic word tinin is the translation of clay or mud. And we can read this in other verses of the Quran. And this kind of assertion is something with which those who do not believe in God and creation could use to make fun of religion and believers. And yet, there is something in this assertion which was completely unknown to the people who lived at the time when the Quran was revealed. The people of that time believed in God and in creation without having with them the scientific evidence that we know today, even if they saw that the human bodies didn't look like clay, that they were made of flesh, blood, organs and bones. So these people had faith, despite seeing the difference between their bodies and clay. But in the present time, we need proof to believe. We are so surrounded by false information that make us doubt. And these proofs, we can find them if we seek. What we currently know is that the chemical elements that make up the human body are exactly the same elements that are found in clay. Elements such as carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, calcium, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, magnesium, iron, zinc, silicon, selenium, and many others. And we know that human bodies are made up of organs, muscle tissues, and bones, which are made up of cells. And these cells are made up of molecules, and these molecules are made up of atoms. Atoms of the chemical elements just mentioned. The same elements found in clay. As if our body was made up of tiny assembled bricks that were extracted from clay. In the past few years, several studies and research have been conducted about clay. But the most significant of these studies was conducted at Cornell University in New York by a team composed of researchers and students. This research has shown that the first life forms on Earth were born in clay, and that no other element on Earth is more conducive to bringing life out of nothing than clay. This study demonstrated that clay and water are the best combination to create life. Here is a summary of this study. The clay hydrogel was the best element for biomolecules and chemical reactions to take place. It was the right environment for the evolution of an RNA world before the development of living cells. And you can easily access this research on clay hydrogel and the implication for early life evolution. But it should be noted that this study does not expose the creation of the human beings as Muslims devise it, but it's about the early life forms that appeared on Earth. Although we all assume that these researchers and scientists are suggesting that these early life forms evolved into multiple species, which will later give rise to humans. This is the main opinion in the scientific world at the present time. But we know that scientists have been wrong many times over the centuries. But it is important to clarify that there is no verse of the Quran that goes against this. I will read two verses that relate the creation of human beings. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَإٍ مَسْنُونٍ. Surely we brought man into being out of dry ringing clay, which was wrought from black mud. The Arabic word salsal means the dried clay, which produces a sound like pottery. And the word masnoon has a double meaning. First, it is rotten clay which has become greasy, but also a clay which has been molded into a shape. And then there is this other verse where Allah talks about the creation of human beings. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. Was there a period of time when man was not even worthy of a mention? The word dahar, which has been translated as a period of time, does not really have an exact translation in English, but it's quite close to the word eternity or endless time. So the Quran does not give any other explanations about the creation of the human beings. Only that clay and water were basic things in creation, but also the time, a very long time. But the hadiths which relate the creation of Adam do not all support this view. But it's important to know that there are not many hadiths that deal with this topic. But there is something intriguing about these hadiths, is that almost all of them were reported by the same companion. Neither the Prophet's wives nor his closest companions narrated a single hadith about the creation of Adam, which is a subject that has interested believers of all times. And it's important to know that some branches of Islam reject all the hadiths of this companion because they believe that he reported too many hadiths and that he knew the Prophet too few years for this to be credible. But that's not what this video is about. But it is interesting to note that this scientific discovery is in line with the Quran. And what we must remember from this is that the appropriate materials that we can find on Earth to create life are clay and water, as mentioned in the Quran.